Welcome. I'm Sebastian Mahfoud, and you're listening to WCAT Radio, the on-air wing of En Route Books and Media, bringing you the dulcet sounds of Catholic wisdom.
My dear listeners, welcome to the 10th episode of the program Discovering Sacred Christian Art. Today, I wanted to remember in the opening of this new year, 2019, the day, 2 days after the day in which we celebrated our Holy Mother, Theotokos, I want to remember today the two saints that we celebrated yesterday, the 2nd of January, Saint Basil the Great and Saint Gregorius Nazianzenus. These two are two of the Cappadocian Fathers, also traditionally known as the three Cappadocians. Basil the Great, he was born in 330 and he died in 379. He was a bishop of Caesarea. Basil's younger brother, Gregory of Nyssa, he was born in 335 and he died in 395. But we will remember him on 10th of January. The other that we remember today, together with Basil the Great, is the close friend of Basil the Great, Gregory of Nazianzus. He was born in 329 and he died in 389, who became Patriarch of Constantinople. The Cappadocia region in which they were born is in modern-day Turkey, was an early site of Christian activity, intense Christian activity, with several missions by St. Paul in this region. The Cappadocian Fathers, Basil and Gregory of Nazianzus especially, advanced the development of early Christian theology, especially focusing on the doctrine of the Trinity, and they are highly respected as a saints, not only in Western Church, but also in Eastern churches. The decisive and strong contribution to the Trinitarian argument was made by them, and they studied a lot. They were of aristocratic birth and of vast culture. All three, also with the brother of Basil the Great, Gregory of Nyssa, that we will remember on 10th of January, and were drawn to the monastic ideal. And in particular, Basil the Great and Gregory of Nazianzus achieved literary distinction of the highest order. While their joint accomplishments in doctrinal definition were indeed outstanding, each made a greater note of work in other fields as well. While the Cappadocian Father shared many traits, each one, and let me include also Gregory of Nyssa, exhibited particular strengths. For example, scholars note that Basil was the man of action. The second that we remember today, that we remembered yesterday, the 2nd of January, Gregory of Nazianzus was the orator. And the third, Gregory of Nyssa, the brother of Basil, was the thinker. So Basil, the man of action, Gregory of Nazianzus, the orator, and Gregory of Nyssa, the thinker. Let me share with you now the plan for our new episode of Discovering Sacred Christian Art. In 2018, we participated to 9 episodes. Episode number 1, dedicated to the early Christian art, entitled The Origins. Episode number 2, dedicated to early Christian art, especially to the catacombs in Rome. Episode number 3, dedicated to the early Christian art, especially the Vatican necropolis. Episode number 4, dedicated to the early Christian art, focusing on St. Peter's Basilica, Vatican Basilica, the ancient one. And the other episode, the episode number 5, dedicated again to the early Christian art, especially again to St. Peter Basilica, the Vatican Basilica, but to the new Basilica. Then, with the episode number 6, we started to see the churches in Rome with a great introduction on this topic. And the episode number 7 was dedicated to the churches in Rome, to those churches that were built during the period of the Renaissance. The episode number 8, again dedicated to the churches in Rome, was dedicated to the churches that were built in the period of the Baroque. And our last episode of the year 2018, the episode number 9, was dedicated to the 2 papal basilicas in Assisi. Today, the episode number 10, that is the first episode of this new year 2019, is dedicating again to early Christian art. And let me share with you my study dedicated to the famous Christian sarcophagi. The Christian sarcophagi belong to all what is Constantinian art. Let me take a connection with the episode number 1 of this marvelous radio program. I spoke about what is Constantinian art. Constantinian art is all what we consider the early Christian art. Don't forget that Emperor Constantine opened the Christian religion to the world, and with the Edict of Milan, also known as the Edict of Constantine, in 313, Christianity was a free religion, even if we have in front of us, again, a long story, a complicated story, but 313 is a very important date for the history of our religion. Before speaking about the sarcophagi, the Christian sarcophagi, let me share with you some artistic notes and historical notes. As introduction, the Constantinian art is placed, as you know, in the 4th century during the rule of Emperor Constantine I, indicatively from the defeat of Maxentius, which occurred in 312, the year before the Edict of Milan, that is the Edict of Constantine, and until what we consider the conclusion of this period, the death of the Emperor Constantine, which occurred in 337. In this period of 25 years, we can see the affirmation of the plebeian style in the art, in the official art of the political power, especially starting from the frieze of the famous Arch of Constantine in Rome, that is at the side of the Colosseum. Thanks to our Dr. Sebastian method, you can see uploaded in the web page of the radio program Discovering Sacred Christian Art, the images of the artworks I am referring to. But if you now are in front of a computer with your smartphone, if you are looking at a tablet, you can search for Arch of Constantine in Rome. And you can see, but also searching from the images I sent to our Dr. Mahfoud to be uploaded, that the Arch of Constantine is very close to the Colosseum, in the same area. And I hope you can visit Rome to see it from real. Alongside the plebeian style, the so-called expressionist current that has nothing to do with expressionism as we know today. The expressionist current of the 3rd century survives. Use of the drill, accentuated, so-called chiaroscuro, and a current Aulic classicism inspired by the Augustan art. Augustan art is all what came from the time of Augustus, the emperor, the first emperor of our history. And so, in the 4th century, in these 25 years, the so-called Constantinian Renaissance begins. The use of plebeian ways, of this plebeian style of art, in official monuments was a revolutionary fact, but rather short, linked above all to the relics of the famous Arch of Constantine and to some sarcophagi. The new classes, social classes, that came to power soon hurried to imitate the art of the previously dominant classes, examples of culture, power, and luxury. Thus, an ideal recovery of the ways of the Augustan art was developed and was called the Constantinian Renaissance, or specifically Constantinian Classical Renaissance. This artistic current, is particularly evident in works of a small format, such as gems, cameos, and you can admire these works in museums in Rome, all around Italy, and also all around Europe, if you are in Paris, or in London, or in Berlin. And these artworks, these fashion, achieve results of such a consistency that they have sometimes been dated by scholars as works of the 1st century AD. In larger works, instead, the classicist current turns out to be more courtly, devoid of vigor and spontaneity in a certain cold sense. The classicist production of the time of the Emperor Constantine was linked to the central power and the luxury craftsmanship, and no longer being an expression of society as a whole, as in the previous times of the Hellenism. Despite the formal correctness, the works are lifeless and a purely ornamental and precious character accentuated. The iconography of these works is repeated without major inventions, and even when it's possible to imitate probably the Hellenistic forms we can see from previous artifacts, as in mosaics. They are placed on a neutral background decontextualized in a collage, therefore devoid of realism, we can say. These characteristics indicate how the artistic break with the Hellenistic tradition began under the Tetrarchy. So we are again in the late antiquity, is now unstoppable and brought to full completion right under the Emperor Constantine. The revival of the ruling class, whose supremacy further burdens the middle and lower classes, marks the return of luxury and private mansions, as evidenced by the excavations of the ancient city of Ostia, that is close to Rome. For example, in Ostia, we can see the domus of Love and Psyche, the domus of the Dioscuri, the domus of Fortuna and Nonaria. And I suggest you to visit Ostia too. That's marvelous. Let me share with you now some particular information about the Christian sarcophagi, and then I will specify my analysis by showing you the most famous sarcophagi. As introduction, I can say that between the end of the 2nd century and the first decades of the of the 3rd century, so before Constantine, the development of Christian communities and of a specific iconography led to the birth of a typology of sarcophagi decorated with Christian themes. We are living a purely pagan world. We are living the tradition to build up sarcophagi only for the pagan world. We are entering in the era of Christianity, even if, as you know, in a silent way. The first of these sarcophagi, however, were born in the same workshops that produced artifacts of profane pagan character, and therefore share with this last iconographic heritage and stylistic paths. All what is Christianity at the beginning, remember, is strongly related in art and in tradition with the pagan world. From the pagan traditional figurative repertoire, they inherit figurative schemes, in some cases dating back to the Hellenistic age, which are then modified from time to time with the insertion of scenes and figures obviously taken from the Old Testament and the New Testament, based on the records of the Christian patrons. Stylistically, the Constantinian age seems to conclude the process of a formal decay and of stereometric construction. Gradually, there is a definite tendency towards plastic revaluation, softening of modeling, the more realistic tradition of physiognomic traits that's so important for the physiognomic studies, even if certain hardness typical of the famous, and we quoted it before, Arch of Constantine. For example, the characteristic sarcophagus of the Constantinian age, and we will speak about it later in the next minutes, is that of a double register. A significant example is represented by the so-called dogmatic sarcophagus in the Museum Laternense in Rome, which shows a series of episodes alluding to some Christian dogmas. In the upper register, we can read the following scenes: Adam and Eve, the original scene, miracles of Cana, multiplication of the bread, and Lazarus in the lower register, Epiphany, healing of the blind, Daniel among the lions, and the 3 scenes starring St. Peter, denial of knowing Christ, arrest, and a miracle. The stylistic language remains substantially disorganized and fragmented, yes, but the relief is southern than the one of the Arch of Constantine, and the shaded planes seem typically of the early Constantinian age. Let me conclude by saying in this introduction that in the late Constantinian age, between 340 and 360, the so-called Constantinian Renaissance reached its peak and produced the best works characterized by soft tops, softened by the smoothness of the marble, spaciousness between the scenes. In the horizontal rhythm of the frieze and of strigils is inserted the principle of vertical net scanning, obtained by a column, a tree, or a frame. The narration is transformed from continuous into episodic. The figures themselves are framed by arboreal arts, or niches adorned as minute architectures. This is the artistic current conventionally called the beautiful style, to which the sarcophagus of, for example, Adifia belongs to the Regional Archaeological Museum of Syracuse. The scene of the Old Testament and of the New Testament, divided into registers in this specific case, are interrupted by a shell valve containing the busts of the two spouses with a refined decorative effect. The parable of the beautiful style, however, has its highest expression and its term in the sarcophagus that we will see in the next minutes, the sarcophagus of Junius Bassus in the Vatican museums. Exactly the table from the inscription on the cover had the year 359. This sarcophagus was commissioned for the urban prefect, Prefectus Urbi, descending from a noble family possessing a classroom at the Esquiline Hill, later transforming a church of St. Andrew on the Esquiline Hill. The profusion of the ornate, the softness of the shaded star faces, the space between the figures make one perceive a Hellenizing taste, and that's true if you see it by real. However, the depth of the kiosks and detachment of the background figures and the whole Roman look of Peter and Paul reveal the work of an exceptional local artist. The subsection of the scenes, which always has the Christocentric content of the victory over the death, does not, however, constitute a logical concatenation of concepts, but rather an episodic narrative, without the distinction between the Old and the New Testaments in the two registers. And at the end of this introduction, I can say that on the basis of the concepts disclosed by the fathers of the Church and by catechesis widely disseminated in the Christian literature of the first centuries, starting from the Constantinian age, one could think of a combination of paradigms coordinated by affinity or contrast in the following way. The first paradigm, Pathian, sacrifice, Job and Adam. The second paradigm, original sin and ransom and reconciliation with the Church. So, one side, Adam and Eve, the other side, the arrest of Peter. Third paradigm, Passion of Christ and Triumph of the Risen Christ. So, in one side, entry into Jerusalem, in the other side, Christ into majesty. The fourth paradigm, the unjustly condemned, Daniel in one side, and Christ before Pilate in the other side. And last and fifth, we can see the witness of the truth, and in opposite, the cowardly incapable of witnessing the truth. So in one side, Paul's martyrdom, and in the other side, the figure of Pilate. The decoration of the sides in these artworks presents bucolic scenes, also harvest, symbolizing the eternal beauty for a long, the beauty of the Beatitude for a long tradition. Let me speak now about the four sarcophagi, the most important four sarcophagi we have in the history of early Christian art. Four sarcophagi of the early Christian art, the most important. The first, the dogmatic sarcophagus. The second, the sarcophagus of Junius Bassus. The third and fourth are, respectively, the sarcophagus of Constantina, the daughter of Constantine, and the sarcophagus of Helena, the mother of Constantine. The first, the dogmatic sarcophagus. Also in the initial production of a sarcophagi, which in the Constantinian era are now explicitly Christian, we notice the same stylistic characteristics of the frieze of the Arch of Constantine, as for example, in the so-called dogmatic sarcophagus in the Vatican museums, which seems to have come out of the same workshop. The dogmatic sarcophagus, also known as the Trinity sarcophagus, is an early Christian sarcophagus dating to 320 until 350. Now in Vatican museums, it was discovered in the 19th century, so recently, during rebuilding works at the Basilica of St. Paul outside the walls in Rome, Italy. Together with the other sarcophagus we mentioned and we will speak about in the next minutes, it is one of the most important examples of Christian Roman sculpture of the Constantinian era. It draws its name from its clear references to the dogmas of the Council of Nicaea of 325, in particular to Christ being the substantial with God the Father, as shown, for example, by the scene of a figure with the appearance of Jesus between Adam and Eve. So whether the figure is to be understood as Christ or God the Father is less clear. The dogmatic point works either way. In this artwork, the dogma of consubstantiality is proclaimed, as it was proclaimed at the Council of Nicaea in 325, in opposition, as we know, to the doctrines of Arius. According to this dogma, Christ coexisted with the Father since the dawn of time. In fact, we see him depicted in the creation of Adam and between Adam and Eve. The front face is split into two registers, typical of the style of the time, with the Old Testament and New Testament subjects, and a central shell-shaped clypeus containing the portraits of the dead couple, embraced and wearing marital clothes typical of the 4th century. In Latin, Dalmatina, toga contabulata by the man, who holds a rotulus in his hand, a tunic, and a pallia by the woman. The heads are basic types, showing there was either no desire or not enough time to personalize the sarcophagus. In the upper register are 5 episodes. In the lower register are 6 scenes, 1 linked to the Christ's birth, 2 to the Bible, and 3 to St. Peter. The sarcophagus can be dated to between 330 and 340 due to the male hairstyles apart from those of Christ and of Peter, squat square figures, and lack of calligraphic detail. There are echoes of the previous plebeian official art, which has led some to suggest that the sarcophagus is from the same workshop that produced and amended the reliefs for the Arch of Constantine, dedicated in 315. We can see now the sarcophagus of Junius Bassus. We can see this artwork later, the classicist style spread, whose best example, albeit with elements still in transition, in this sarcophagus of Junius Bassus, Prefectus Urbi, who died in 359 and is kept in the Vatican Museum, Vatican Grottos. Together with the dogmatic sarcophagus that is in the same museum, this sarcophagus is one of the oldest surviving high-statue sarcophagi, with elaborate carvings of the Christian themes and a complicated iconography program embracing the Old and the New Testaments. Junius Bassus was an important figure, a senator who was in charge of the government of the capital as Prefectus Urbi when he died at the age of 42 in 359, as I mentioned. His father had been Praetorian prefect, running the administration of a large part of the Western Empire. Junius Bassus served under Constantinus II, that was the son of the Emperor Constantine, as we know, Constantine I, as the inscription of the sarcophagus tells us. Junius Bassus converted to Christianity shortly before his death, perhaps on his deathbed. The sarcophagus of Junius Bassus is a marble early Christian sarcophagus used for the burial, and it has been described as probably the single most famous piece of early Christian relief sculpture. The sarcophagus was originally placed in or under Old St. Peter's Basilica, the ancient basilica, and was rediscovered in 1597, 1597, and is now below the modern basilica, the new basilica, in the, what I can say in English, Museum of St. Peter's Basilica, historical museum of the treasure of the Basilica of St. Peter in Vatican. The base is approximately 4 feet per 8 per 4. In this sarcophagus of Junius Bassus, no portrait of the deceased is shown, though he is praised in lavish terms in an inscription. Instead, the 10 niches are filled with the scenes from both the New Testament and the Old Testament, plus one that is the famous Traditio Legis that has no scriptural basis. In the sarcophagus of Junius Bassus, the popular current continues to shine in the head's rolly raw cut, while the current of calligraphic classicism manifests itself in the smooth drapery. The expression of pain and anguish typical of the 3rd century have also disappeared, replaced by an aura of composure and apparent serenity, which reflects the predominant conformism desired by the harsh Constantinian regime. And now let me speak about the 2 sarcophagi dedicated to the 2 women of the family of Constantine. Sarcophagi, Christian sarcophagi, because they are related to Christian figure of the imperial family of Constantine in red porphyry, are the sarcophagus of Constantina, the daughter, with vegetal vines and harvests, and the sarcophagus of Helena, the mother, at the Vatican Museums. Perhaps this one initially prepared for the father of Constantine, Constantine, his husband of Helena, the father of Constantine, in the year 306, as evidenced by his portrait and the use of the scenes with the Roman cavalry fighting against the barbarians, because Constantine was a soldier. The sarcophagi of Helena and of Constantina are 2 4th century porphyry sarcophagi in Vatican museums. The sarcophagus of Helena is the red porphyry coffin in which Saint Helena, the mother of the emperor, was buried. She died in 329. The coffin, deprived of its contents for centuries, was removed from the mausoleum of Helena in the area of Tor Pignatara, just outside the walled city of Rome, and ultimately moved to the Vatican Museums in the 18th century, so very late. And now is in the Pio Clementine section of the Vatican Museum in the so-called Room of the Greek Cross, Sala a Croce Greca. The sarcophagus is carved in the Egyptian porphyry, used only in the finest Byzantine imperial monuments. It is noted that the carved imagery depicts victorious Roman cavalry riding above captured barbarians, as I mentioned before. It was unclear if such imagery was intended for the sarcophagus of a highly religious Christian woman, that is Helena, or whether the coffin was repurposed for her burial. But now we are sure that this is the sarcophagus of the Empress Helena. And we remember her, in our liturgical calendar, on 18th of August. Saint Helena the Empress. This is a massive sarcophagus, 2.42 meters high, is assigned to this great woman, and even if, of course, the motives are related to the life of the husband Constantine. And can say that the work that surely was created in the first half of the 4th century was easily restored in the 18th century at the time of the discovery. Although the general lines of the scenes, the composition and the general style are unequivocally original. We can say that the other sarcophagus of Constantine, is another interesting artwork. The sarcophagus of Constantine is dated to the year 340. Sarcophagus of Constantine is in the same room as a second porphyry work that once housed the body of Constantine, daughter of Constantine the Great. She died in 354, and once was in her mausoleum in the Nomentana Way, but it became the Church of St. Costanza in 1254, and later this artwork was brought to this museum, the Vatican Museums. The decoration is a semi-pagan depiction of Capids in the Dionysiac harvesting of grapes to make wine. It has been interpreted as an early Christian reference to the Eucharist for the young princess. My dear listeners, I hope you enjoyed this exploration about Christian sarcophagi. In our next episode, the episode 11, I will speak about all what is related to the early Christian art, and in reference with the area of Ravenna. Ravenna, the capital of the art, Byzantine art in Italy. We will speak about Ravenna mosaics and Ravenna sarcophagi. Let me wish you a Happy New Year, and I hope to have the occasion to create the next episode for your interest, the episode 11. For the moment, I wish you a good day. Bye-bye.
We hope you enjoyed the program and will join us back for another show on WCAT Radio. This is Sebastian Mahfood. Good day.